like this will be just some food for thought. And so that's Rudyard Kipling, wrote the Jungle Book, a famous poet as well, short story writer, and the book The Man Who Would Be King. One of like his quote: "If history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten." Also, a Freemason. Now, what that links to is The Man Who Would Be King. Now, it's one of my excellent movie. I really liked it, really enjoyed it. But it's a story based. So Peachy and Dravot, they're soldiers in India, scallywags. They steal a watch off Kipling. They see that there's a Freemason insignia on the watch. We have to return it to him. And then they hatch a plan to get a bunch of rifles and go up into the mountains of Afghanistan and basically turn themselves into kings. And they head for Kafiristan, which is was almost mythical, but sort of a real place. And it's in Afghanistan, higher in the mountains, where a unusual sect of Hindus remained in their religion, even though they didn't convert. Now, still a few there. Apparently, it's an interesting part of the world. It's like almost like these Shangri-Las, one of those types of places that captivated people. But so they find their way to Kafiristan, Peachy and Dravot. They form an army and start moving from village to village, building up their own little kingdom. Dravot is shot by an arrow, but it hits his bandolier, and the locals think that he's immortal, that he could survive. You know, his almost godlike status. Then Peachy and Dravot, there's these priests, these weird priests that have sort of just appear. The battle would stop when the locals saw these priests, and they would just walk through. Peachy and Dravot are invited to go to the temple to meet these priests, and immediately the priests grab him and they go to kill him. And they rip his shirt open and they see that Dravot is wearing the Freemason's necklace. And then they stop in there because they've also heard the story of his immortality. And what these priesthood have been doing is holding on to a large treasure that's been there since the time of Alexander or Ixander. And they had a prophecy that the sons of Alexander would return. And they pull up a stone, and underneath the stone you see that symbol there. And so Dravot becomes a king. That arrow which he was shot with, again, the golden arrow of Apollo. And it's also some nice details because in that part of all Greco-Buddhist architecture as well, which was sort of introduced around about the time of Alexandria, a lot of Freemasonic things going on there. Now Dravot actually starts to believe that he is a god, and when a young woman, which was Michael Caine's wife in real life, but her name is Roxanne, and he thinks, just like Roxanne and Alexander got married, he thinks, this is, I am the son of Alexander. Anyway, okay, not to spoil at the end, but he's revealed as not being immortal, and then he is killed off. And then 2 years later, Peachy comes back down to India where Kipling is working in the newspaper office, and he brings back Dravot's head, the king's head. And that's what I think's interesting, because this is a thing with, so a stamp, for instance, a compass and square, and the tiler. Now, the tiler is an important symbol as well on the Freemason tracing boards, Columba and the dove. But what we have here is the king's head symbol and what that represents. Now, one of the famous witch trials was that of Agnes Sampson, King James I. Interesting story there if you want to go in a little bit more of how she came to be. But Agnes Sampson, one of the charges against her, because she was a medicine woman, a wise woman as it was at the time, and that was common for them to be accused of witchcraft, King James I period. So Agnes Sampson, she was accused of boiling king's heads. Well, one of the remedies at the time was to get a copper coin, boil it in water to make almost like a copper sulfate, very dilute solution. But that actually is helpful for stomach pain. And so boiling king's head is a bit of like a apothecary or alchemy in that sense, but that connection to king's head. But then I'm thinking, because I've heard this pop up a few other times, and again, just thinking out aloud here rather than presenting anything solid, but that did remind me of another famous king's head, and that's the Skull and Bones Society. And what they have is the skull of the Indian chief Geronimo. And it's a stolen skull, so this Yale Society stole a skull, and that's one of their prized possessions, and it's just like, with a big middle finger to the world, no, we've taken it, there's nothing you can do about it, which is, very curious and interesting in that it's not, it's open, not even an open, not even an open secret, it's just like well known. But then it got me thinking, well, Geronimo, who was Geronimo? Geronimo was a medicine man / warrior who would be king. There we have him with the king's head, and the suggestions of the importance of the king's head, and it comes back. So again, that's so what exactly is going on with these king's head? Now you'll hear other references here and there as well, but I just thought that, well, is there something at the very least might make an interesting little tale in your Rudyard Kipling form, but there could be something maybe there if you're just thinking out aloud. King's heads, Skull and Bones, Geronimo, and Kipling. And of course the witch trials, medicine woman boiling king's heads as well, which I just thought was something interesting too. So just a short one, or probably more of a rant, nothing particularly here that I can put my finger down on, just sharing. So have a good one.